Jason Aldean is one of my favorite country singers. He's one of all of our favorite country singers. He's extremely popular, extremely famous, and he's embroiled in a pseudo-controversy. He released a song back in May called Try That in a Small Town. Again, critical to note that this song was not released today. It was not released yesterday. It was not released this week. It was released back in May. No one had any problem with it when it was released back in May. But this week, Jason Aldean released a music video attached to this song, and suddenly the left is like, their heads are exploding. People on social media are accusing Jason Aldean of, they're calling this song pro-lynching. Someone on social media said that this was a modern lynching song. The outrage from the left was so extreme that the country music television channel, CMT, actually pulled it. They stopped airing this music video. It's a pretty big deal. They don't usually do stuff like that. So these are the lyrics that are supposedly so controversial. I'm going to read them to you before we look at the video. This is what Jason Aldean sings. He says, cuss out a cop, spit in his face, stomp on the flag and light it up. Yeah, you think you're tough? Well, try that in a small town. See how far you make it down the road. Around here, we take care of our own. You cross that line, it won't take long for you to find out. I recommend you don't try that in a small town. That's what's supposed to be so controversial. That you thought, wow, there's going to be something edgy in there, maybe some profanity, maybe some names. No. That was literally it. That's the extent of the lyrics to this song. This is a little clip of the video. Now, the video shows some of the scenes that we have seen in our country from the last couple of years, since maybe 2020. Some of the riots, the attacks on police, that is the backdrop of this video. You can take a look at what this looks like.
Sucker punch somebody on a sidewalk, carjacking old lady at a red light.
So you can see some carjacking happening, crime, someone robbing a convenience store. These images are overlaid. You can see cops under attack from what looks like smoke grenades, Antifa shouting in the face of cops, burning the American flag. This is the images that unfortunately are burned in all of our minds. We've seen all of these so repeatedly since the Black Lives Matter riots of 2020. We saw these, actually even before the Black Lives Matter riots, we saw Antifa behaving like that. Prior even to the big Black Lives Matter riots, burning in the background, vandalism on stores. I mean, these are images you can't really forget. Almost all of these images I'm familiar with, which means you're familiar with. We've seen these so many times. I think that's enough. We get the idea of what this is. We don't have to play the whole song here. But you can see that these lyrics are set against a backdrop of just what's happening in our culture. This is. I don't know why the left is so mad about this song, because this is behavior the left has endorsed over the past couple of years. They have told us that these Black Lives Matter riots, these really destructive billion-dollar riots, were some kind of justice, were some kind of racial justice. They told us that they weren't ashamed of this. This wasn't something that they said, oh no, a few fringe people in our party did this violence, committed this violence, and we disavow that. We don't stand for it. No, they do stand for this. This is their political tactic of choice right now. And it's incredibly telling. It's incredibly telling. There's a woman named Shannon Watts. She is the woman in charge of Moms Demand Action, that anti-gun group. It's a subgroup of Everytown for Gun Safety. It's one of the most prominent. They call themselves gun control. I would call them anti-gun groups in the country. And this is what she tweeted. This is important to the narrative of this story. She posted a headline that said, CMT, the country music television, pulls Jason Aldean's controversial "Try That in a Small Town" video. And she posted and said, proud to have had a hand in getting CMT to reject this racist and violent song. Now, that's a pretty serious allegation, racist and violent song. It is. The violence in it was committed by leftists, which is the irony here. But Shannon Watts is admitting that this was a concerted leftist effort against Jason Aldean. And this is what Jason Aldean posted in response. This has become such a thing. This was trending top on, if you go to Google, you can see what the top searches in the world are. And Jason Aldean is the top search in the United States of America. People all over the country are interested in watching horrified, if you're like me, what's happening to Jason Aldean. They're trying to cancel him. But this is what he said in response. In the past 24 hours, I have been accused of releasing a pro-lynching song, a song that's been out since May, and was subject to the comparison that I, direct quote, was not too pleased with the nationwide BLM protests. These references are not only meritless, but dangerous. There's not a single lyric in the song that references race or points to it. And there isn't a single video clip that isn't real news coverage. And while I can try and respect others to have their own interpretation of a song with music, this one goes too far. As many pointed out, I was present at Route 91 where so many lost their lives, and our community, he lives in Nashville, recently suffered another heartbreaking tragedy. No one, including me, wants to continue to see senseless headlines or families ripped apart. Try that in a small town for me, he writes, refers to the feeling of a community that I had growing up, where we took care of our neighbors, regardless of differences of background or belief, because they were our neighbors, and that was above any differences. My political views have never been something I've hidden from, and I know that a lot of us in this country don't agree on how we get back to a sense of normalcy, where we go at least a day without a headline that keeps us up at night, but the desire for it to, that's what this song is about. That response that Jason Aldean posted on Twitter has been viewed 18.5 million times. 18.5 million times. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of people. This whole situation, though, is incredibly telling because the song ultimately is about two things. The song is about the riots that have torn us apart in the last 3 or 4 years, and it's about accountability. And accountability is different when you are in a small town versus when you're in a big city. There's a difference in a small town circumstance where everyone knows everyone else. You wouldn't get away with vandalizing a local business in a small town because somebody's mom's gonna know you. You went to high school with that person. That you're going to be known. And when you're known, when your face is known, when your name is known, when your family's known, when your identity is known, you don't get away with what you can get away when you're anonymous in a big city. So but I know Jason Aldean talks about how people interpret art. He references how people interpret art, that art is not always about what the artist intended, but how the viewer, or in this case, the listener, might view the art. That's true. It's an interesting kind of mind-bendy thing about art, that it's not like the Constitution where we're trying to identify exactly what the founders were thinking when they wrote. We want to get inside their heads. We want to know exactly what they meant so that we can enact the Constitution in our nation to the best of its original intentions. That's not always true with art. Art is different than law. Art is sometimes, it has a more subjective interpretation versus an objective interpretation. But there's a certain point, as Jason Aldean noted, when it becomes ridiculous. Because when someone is redefining a word to mean the opposite of what the artist intended, and then using that redefinition to accuse the artist of writing a pro-lynching song, of being a racist, of promoting violence, then that subjective interpretation of art just becomes delusion or becomes a hideous political attack. Hi guys, it's Liz Wheeler. Don't forget to watch my show, The Liz Wheeler Show, every night at 7 p.m. on the First TV. You can download the free First TV app, or you can visit thefirsttv.com/Liz and start watching today.